All right, picture this. You're in a cafe, right? Maybe reading something, trying to enjoy a quiet moment.
Yeah.
And you hear at the next table these people getting loud.
Yeah.
They start saying these kind of pointed remarks like they're
trying to
they're looking for a reaction from someone. How do you think?
provoke someone.
Yeah, provoke someone. How would you react in that kind of situation?
That's a great question, and it actually ties in perfectly with what we're going to be talking about today.
That's kind of the scene
It's a
that
really good setup.
it is. It sets the stage for this story that we're going to dive into. And the source material you shared with me is an essay from Tao of Jeet Kune Do by Bruce Lee.
By Bruce Lee, yeah. And, I think a lot of people, when they think Bruce Lee, they think
Martial arts master.
martial arts, right? Incredible physique, lightning fast moves.
The movies, right?
But this essay, it really gets into his philosophy of mastery. And I think that's really,
Goes beyond.
yeah, it goes way beyond just the physical.
So what we're going to try to do in this deep dive is unpack Bruce Lee's comparison of like Eastern versus Western thinking when it comes to achieving mastery. Then we're going to look at this idea he brings up of purposelessness and how that can lead to...
Almost like a paradox, right?
It is. It's kind of a paradox, reaching like ultimate skill. But ultimately, this is all about what it means for you, for anyone, really, in
Absolutely.
cultivating self-mastery in whatever they're pursuing. I mean, you brought this essay to us. What was it that...
Bring their attention.
Yeah, what was it that really grabbed you?
For me, the hook was the story.
Okay.
The way Bruce Lee sets this up. He talks about these three swordsmen in a Japanese inn. It's crowded. And these guys are being loud and obnoxious.
Oh, so
they're really trying to get a rise out of someone.
Purposely, yeah.
They're directing these comments, these rude remarks at this other guy who's just sitting there seemingly oblivious.
Just like minding his own business.
Yeah, it's a classic scene, You can almost feel the tension building.
You know what's coming, right?
Yeah.
So these swordsmen, they're like peacocking around.
And practically begging for a fight.
Yeah. And what does this master do? What's his response?
Well, he completely ignores them at first.
Ignores all the taunts.
Like they're not even there.
Right.
But then, as they keep pushing, he very subtly picks up his chopsticks. And in one swift motion, he just snips the wings off of 4 flies.
Wow. So he's not even...
That's almost nonchalant.
He's not like engaging with them at all, really. He's just... Effortlessly doing his thing.
Yeah. And you know what happens next?
No, what?
These 3 loud, aggressive swordsmen, they get up without a word. They leave.
They just leave.
The end. No fight, no more words, just gone.
Now, if you were coming at this from, say, a Western mindset, you might be thinking, okay, that's a cool party trick, but how's that make him a master swordsman?
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what Bruce Lee is getting at. He suggests that a Westerner might be impressed.
By the skill.
By the skill, by the dexterity, but...
And not necessarily see the connection.
Yeah, not quite grasp the deeper meaning.
So like superior combat skill.
Right. The Western mind, it tends to look for that very direct, practical connection.
Oh, I see.
Cause and effect, catching flies.
Yeah.
How does that translate to using a sword? It doesn't seem obvious.
Yeah, it's not like he's
not a one
deflecting blows with chopsticks.
No. But the Eastern understanding, as Lee explains it, sees something much more profound. They would recognize...
What would they recognize?
They'd recognize that someone capable of that level of control, that precision, from what seems like a trivial act, possesses an incredible presence of mind.
Okay, so let's break down this idea of presence of mind a little bit more. It's clearly more than...
It is, yeah.
Just being good at catching flies. What does it really signify?
Well, from the Eastern perspective that Lee is describing, it's about a state of being.
Okay.
Not just a skill. It's about wholeness, imperturbability.
Imperturbability.
Yeah, not being easily disturbed.
The master in the story, he's not reacting to those swordsmen.
He's completely calm.
He's got that unwavering focus. And he does something pretty difficult, actually, with ease.
Effortlessly.
All of that points to, like, a very deep mastery over himself.
Over himself, yeah. I think the swordsmen, maybe without even fully realizing it.
Okay.
They sensed that...
that they were dealing with...
Yeah, that they were up against someone on a completely different level.
Someone who's
mastered himself.
Yeah. So it's not the fly catching itself that's so important, but what it reveals about the master's inner state.
Exactly. And this idea, it goes even deeper when Lee talks about the purpose of martial arts.
Yeah.
Because, in the West, we tend to view those techniques, the punches, the kicks.
Oh, as like weapons.
Yeah, as tools for offense.
Yeah.
To inflict damage.
You think about fighting, right?
Yeah, defeating an opponent.
Right.
And that's certainly one aspect of it.
Of course.
But the Eastern philosophy goes further. It's about conquering those internal enemies.
So like your own...
Our own weaknesses. Greed, fear, anger.
Those things we all struggle with.
Yeah, the things that hold us back.
So the training then, it's not just about getting physically stronger or more skilled.
No.
It's about this.
It's about mastering your inner state.
Okay, yeah.
Your emotions, your focus, your reactions.
And that's really...
That's the foundation.
That's what those swordsmen were picking up on.
Yeah, I think so.
In that story, right.
It wasn't aggression they encountered. It was
that sense of control.
An incredible stillness.
So it seems like Bruce Lee is saying the real purpose of martial arts, it's not just about fighting other people. It's about this personal journey.
It's about self-mastery.
And he even uses this powerful imagery, right?
He does, yeah.
Like the martial artist is aiming his
kicks and blows.
Kicks and blows at himself.
At himself. It's striking, isn't it?
It is. And the goal then is to achieve this.
Yeah, what he calls a vital loosening and equability of all powers.
Okay.
Within yourself. It's about achieving this deep inner harmony, this complete self-possession.
So those swordsmen, they might have sensed that,
Right.
That level of self-mastery that the master had already achieved. Now, Bruce Lee goes on to talk about the mind and this concept of sticking. What's he getting at there? How does that connect?
Well, he talks about how our minds work in everyday life, how they move from one thought to another pretty effortlessly.
And we're constantly thinking about.
Right. You can be thinking about what you need from the store.
Errands, work, everything.
Work, then dinner, all without really getting stuck. That's what he calls the being mind. Always in motion, always flowing.
That's like always doing.
Right, the doing mind.
Yeah.
As opposed to the having mind, which clings to things.
Which is like more stagnant.
Yeah, less adaptable.
So being like a river, right?
Exactly. Constantly moving, changing.
Always going somewhere.
Yeah. Whereas the having mind is more like a pool of water. Stagnant. No. But then he says, when we're under pressure.
Oh, like a high-stress situation.
A confrontation, a big presentation, anything really intense. Our minds tend to do this thing. They stick. They get fixated.
They get stuck on one thing.
Yeah. And that stickability is a major obstacle to mastery.
So you're saying instead of being able to adapt and flow with the situation, you get bogged down.
Yeah. You get caught up in those thoughts, those fears, that one plan.
And you can't react as effectively.
Exactly. Lee uses this great example.
What's that?
Talks about Kuan Yin.
Oh, the Buddhist figure.
Yeah, the bodhisattva of compassion. She's often depicted with
1,000 arms.
1,000 arms, right? Each holding a different instrument.
Right.
And he says, imagine if her mind got stuck on just one of those instruments.
So she's got all these tools.
All these tools, but she can only focus on one.
Oh, I see.
Suddenly, the other 999 are useless. Her true power comes from her mind not stopping.
Oh.
That flow between the instruments.
It's like she's constantly assessing the situation.
Exactly.
And choosing the right tool for the job.
Yeah, and if we bring that back to our own lives, think about it. When you're facing a difficult problem at work or dealing with an unexpected crisis.
Anything that requires you to think on your feet?
That ability to stay fluid mentally is essential.
Okay. So the key is to cultivate this kind of like non-stickiness of the mind to be able to adapt. Now, this brings us to what might seem like a contradiction.
Yeah.
Bruce Lee talks about purposelessness or empty-mindedness and how that can actually be beneficial for achieving mastery.
Yeah.
It sounds kind of counterintuitive, right? Like, how can having no purpose be a good thing?
Well, this is where we get into the heart of Eastern philosophy, specifically Zen Buddhism.
Okay.
And, Zen uses these terms purposelessness, empty-mindedness, even no art.
No art. How?
To describe the highest level of attainment.
Yeah.
Because it's not about...
It's not about what we normally think of as goals.
No. It's a very different approach.
Okay.
The Zen idea, as Lee explains it, is that the spirit in its purest form, it's formless. It shouldn't cling to anything, to any objects.
And by objects, he means?
He means fixed ideas, preconceptions, even a tightly held goal in the moment of action.
So it's about letting go of expectations and just being present.
Completely present.
In the moment.
And Lee argues that when you cling to those specific thoughts and tensions, it creates an imbalance in your energy. It's like focusing all your weight on one side of a seesaw.
Oh, so you're putting too much emphasis.
Too much in one direction, not enough in others.
Yeah.
It restricts your ability to respond naturally.
You get tunnel vision.
Yeah, you get so focused on one outcome that you lose that flexibility to adapt.
And that can lead to mistakes.
It can. And sometimes it can even become excessive.
Like you're trying too hard.
Yeah, like a flood of energy directed at one point.
Okay.
Which can make you less controlled.
So in both cases, whether it's being too rigid or not having enough awareness, you're not as equipped to handle the unpredictable.
Exactly. And that's where purposelessness comes in.
Okay.
Or what Lee also calls fluidity, or even mindlessness.
And that's the solution to this problem.
In a way, yes. Because in this state, the spirit isn't clinging to anything.
It's not fixed on one outcome.
It's not trying to force a particular result. It's empty, open. And because of that, it can respond spontaneously.
Oh, I see.
And effectively to whatever comes up.
Okay.
Without hesitation, without that conscious calculation.
So it's not about being passive, but
no, not at all.
About being so present, so free from expectations.
That you can act with clarity and precision, almost instinctively.
Like intuition taking over.
Yeah, like a natural response.
And that applies to so much more than just martial arts, right?
Absolutely. Think about any situation where you need to react quickly. Business, creative work, even just driving in traffic.
Everyday life.
That ability to respond without preconceived notions, to be fluid, present.
That's invaluable.
It is. It's like getting out of your own way.
Letting go of those mental obstacles.
Exactly.
And this all ties into Bruce Lee's final point about true mastery, which goes beyond any particular skill or art form.
It does. He says true mastery comes from self-mastery.
And that means?
It's about cultivating that inner stillness, that awareness.
Being in tune with yourself and your surroundings.
Exactly.
So that master in the inn, he wasn't just showing off. He was demonstrating.
He was demonstrating a deep level of self-control.
And only then, Bruce Lee says, can you truly know yourself?
That's the ultimate goal, isn't it?
It is. So to kind of wrap this up, Bruce Lee's essay, through this story of the swordsman and the master, gives us a really insightful look at the concept of mastery. It's not just about strength or skills or techniques.
It's about something much deeper.
It's about this inner stillness, mental fluidity, and the discipline to reach a state of, as he calls it, purposeless effectiveness.
And, thinking about your interest in gaining knowledge and not feeling overwhelmed, it's interesting to consider this idea of not stopping mentally. Could that be a key to handling those challenges you're facing?
Instead of getting fixated on one solution or feeling overwhelmed by all the options?
Could cultivating that inner fluidity help you navigate them more effectively?
It's a really different way of thinking about it. So when you think about areas of your life where you want to achieve mastery,
whether it's a new skill or your work or just your daily life,
could this idea of purposelessness,
letting go of those rigid expectations, cultivating that inner calm,
could that actually be the most effective path to reaching your goals? It's certainly something to ponder.